You're out with your girls on a Friday night, and somewhere between Cosmo number 5 and 6, you decide going on a cruise together is a great idea. When you wake up hungover the next morning, do you still think it's a good idea? It actually might be. So let's see if there are a few things that we can do to help ease you into that 14-day transatlantic with your besties. The first thing I want you to do is take a dry run on solid ground. It might sound like a great idea to book yourselves a cruise out in the middle of the ocean when you're not really sure that you can get along overnight, but it might not be. So let's take the overnight trip first. Pack an overnight bag, go down the shore, go to Las Vegas. Just do a quick weekend away before you commit to a longer trip out at sea where you're going to be forced to spend more time together. Another good thing to think about is the cabin arrangement. You might want to look for a ship that has solo cabins so everybody has their own space to retreat to, but that might not be an option. So take a look at what your cabin sleeping arrangements and configuration is going to be. How many people do you want in that cabin with you? How many can you tolerate in that cabin with you? Take a look at all the logistics and see how many people you're going to put in one room. Instead of booking that 14-night transatlantic voyage, why don't you start with a shorter 3 or 4 night cruise? These are cruises that you can be in and out of over a long weekend, so if things aren't going great, you have a light at the end of the tunnel. You're not stuck in the middle of the ocean with days and days at sea, hoping and praying that no one, quote unquote, accidentally has to fall overboard. Look at the 3 or 4 night voyages, ones where you can fly home and be home in 2 or 3 hours. Those are going to be the best ones to start with. Another good thing to think about is booking a cruise with fewer sea days. Now, what is a sea day? A sea day is basically when you are just on the ship and you can't get off because you're going between ports. If you book one that has more port stops and fewer sea days, you have more opportunities to leave the ship, be out on dry land, be wandering around, maybe even find some solitary space for yourself. You don't all have to book the same excursions together. You don't all have to do everything exactly the same. And having port days gives you the opportunity to spread out and then come back later in the evening and talk about all the wonderful things you did. Let's go back for a minute to those logistics in the cabin. Now, let's say it's only going to be 2 of you. That'll work out just fine for most cabins because most cabins, even if you start with a big bed, that bed can be split into 2 smaller beds so everybody has their own space. Not all cabins work that way, and if you have more than 2 people in a cabin, chances are someone is going to have to sleep in the upper berth. Now, take a look at your friends group because if I'm in it, it's not going to be my fat ass getting in that upper berth. I'll tell you that right now. So you want to talk to your friends, work out the kinks, see who can climb up into that berth. Doesn't have to get up 12 times in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. You want to work those things out before you get there, and it's a surprise, and you have to make some uncomfortable decisions. The other logistical things you want to think about is the time that it takes everybody to shower. Is it going to be enough time to get ready for dinner if you're out on an excursion all day and there are 3 or 4 of you in a cabin that all have to shower? There might come a point where you want to book 2 adjoining cabins or connecting cabins so you do have a little bit more independent space. The most important thing I can recommend to you is that you also need to be considerate. If you're that person that takes an hour-long hot shower, the cruise is not the time or the place to do that, especially if there are 3 or 4 of you in a cabin waiting to get ready to go to dinner or a show or an excursion. If at home you hop out of the shower soaking wet and run through the room, scattering stuff all over the place, this is not when you're going to do that either. You're going to want to keep your stuff kind of in the same spot. Wear a bathrobe. Nobody needs to see you running around naked. And be considerate of other people's space. There's not a ton of storage. And if there's more than 1 or 2 of you in a cabin, that storage space is going to come at a premium. The other things you can do that are considerate, bring something like a potpourri or a nice air freshener that you can use in the bathroom so that when nature calls, it doesn't leave a long lingering message in the cabin for everyone else to be disturbed by. And also, keep your texts and your phone calls and stuff back home At a minimum, of course you're going to want to call your kids or your grandkids or your husband, but don't let that interfere with the time that you've set aside for your friends. If you want to get to a point where you can do that 14-day transatlantic voyage, you have to be polite and considerate on your 3 or 4 night trip. Oh, and one more tip, travel insurance. You never know when something might happen, and you don't want the fact that you have to cancel the cruise to impact everybody else's cruise, and vice versa. If you can find a travel insurance that offers cancel for any reason coverage, that will help if one of your friends has to cancel and you're stuck by yourself, or it'll help if anybody decides at the last minute that they don't want to go and the trip kind of falls apart. Definitely look into travel insurance if you go. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you'd like to hear more, and if you want to hear it right away as soon as we post it, don't forget to boop the bell. And if you're looking at a cruise, whether you're going solo or going with a group of friends, don't forget that I can help you book that trip. Wavesandwandering.com is a great place to reach out and get in touch with me if you want to go on a trip with your friends. I have traveled with the same group of friends for more than 15 years, and we've done at least a dozen cruises over that amount of time. It really helps to know that you're on board with people you can ride the storm out with, because literally you might have to ride a storm out with them. You want to go with people that you know you can count on, and that you enjoy being with. So even if you've never been with them on an overnight trip, know that you can get along with them during the day. Know that you can get along with them for cocktails on Friday night before you make the leap into a big commitment like a cruise.